The VBS scandal, reviewed in 2018, involved the embezzlement of nearly 2 billion, affecting municipalities and individual depositors primarily in rural areas. High-ranking officials, including the Chairperson, Mr. Matodzi, and CEO, Mr. Ramavhunga, are alleged to have orchestrated the fraud through fraudulent account and unchecked loans. Despite recovery efforts and multiple arrests, the scandal exposed severe governance lapses and had significant political implications. Welcome back to the Fraud News channel. I'm your host, Boss Robert. To those who have already liked and subscribed to the channel, thank you. Those who have not yet, please show your brother some love. Current political and media framing of the VBS scandal seem to be leaning towards EFF and its officials, particularly their leader, Mr. Julius, and their deputy leader, Mr. Floyd. But transparency seems to be lacking in the political and media framing of this scandal. Firstly, it should be noted that the VBS scandal to occur, ANC officials were deeply involved, and these include the then mayor and municipal officials who were in charge. And without them, the VBS scandal would not occur. Secondly, the auditors of the VBS were from KPMG, which were charged by the NPA on 47 counts of theft, fraud, corruption, and contraventions of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. This led KPMG to allegedly pay confidential out-of-court settlement of nearly 500 million rands. Thirdly, investigators by the Hawks, as far as I know, reviewed that Mr. Floyd had received only 180,000 from his younger brother's company, which was allegedly to have benefited from the VBS scandal. Last time I checked, 180,000 is nothing compared to 2 billion rands, and there is nothing wrong or unusual with receiving money from your brother. But as for Mr. Malema, no connection was found that indicated he had benefited from the VBS scandal. Fourthly, the leaked affidavit from Mr. Matodzi, who has been sentenced for 15 years in prison, has not been tested for its truthfulness in the courts of law. But this does not necessarily mean that there is no truth to it. The motivation behind the leak may be similar to the Phala Phala leak, to create a political and media frenzy. With the current motion by the opposition to bring the Phala Phala issue to the parliament, the bringing back of the VBS scandal may be a political move to muddy the waters. With this in mind, I can only conclude that this is a political chess game that is unfolding before us. Unless more concrete evidence is brought to light, then this will end in nothingness. Let us listen to several video clips to bring further context to this discourse.
Former VBS Mutual Bank Tshifhiwa's Matodzi was sentenced to an effective 15 years in jail after pleading guilty this week. This is for his coordinated looting of the bank. He was found guilty of 33 counts of corruption, theft, fraud, money laundering and racketeering. His guilty plea saw him enter a deal with the state, which resulted in him signing a now leaked 263-page witness statement in which several politicians, traditional leaders and the former DG at National Treasury are implicated. The statement also alleges that EFF leaders Julius Malema and Floyd Tshifhiwa received kickbacks from VBS for the party to not use political muscle against the bank. But let's get reaction to these latest developments. And for that, we're now joined by VBS Minority Shareholder Spokesperson, Mr. Madambi Mobulawa. Mr. Mobulawa, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with this. The news is revealed this week that Tshifhiwa Matodzi was sentenced to an effective 15 years in prison. What's the reaction from you?
We we welcome the sentence because it's a sign that those who are investigating the cases are doing their job, and now the NPA has now acted accordingly. Though the period of serving, to us it seems not that so harsh in comparison to the money that was lost by the people.
What would you have preferred that sentence to look like?
Though we don't have really anything in our mind of in as far as the period of the sentence, but 15 years we felt it is not it's not really relevant to the money implicated in these cases.
Do you believe that more people should be held accountable outside of just Mr. Matodzi?
Well, we expected that there are there are other people implicated, but to our surprise, is the list that Mr. Matodzi has of the people implicated. Some of them we never expected that, but we appreciate what Matodzi has done, because now the NPA know who to deal with, because it is making their job easier, because now they know who they should follow up.
Okay, I imagine that you've seen that 263-page witness statement, right? As you talk about the list that he's revealed, and you said some of them you simply weren't expecting to be there. Names that stood out for you that have been implicated by this witness statement.
Can I get your question properly?
Who is it? You said you were surprised by some of the names that have come up out of Mr. Matodzi's witness statement. Who are the names that really stood out for you and surprised you?
Who haven't been named?
Who has been named in the list? Okay, so let's start with this. According to this witness statement, Mr. Mobulawa, what we've heard as well from this witness statement is essentially it has implicated Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu, saying that they had met with leadership of the bank, that meeting culminating in, 16.1 million rand being given to the economic freedom fighters. Some of those monies used allegedly to buy a restaurant in Soweto. So did you know about those transactions, and what did you make of that revelation?
We didn't know. We thought the people implicated are only those mentioned by the Perimutau in Revelation. But now that, Mr. Matodzi has added other names, we never expected some of them to be in the list.
What do you think do you believe that 16 million rand was allegedly given to the economic freedom fighters? So what is your position on that?
No, you see, we believe on what is investigated and proved. That's what we believe in. All the time, it was individuals were named. It was always, a suspicion that maybe. But now that, what remains is now that it be proven in the court of law. So it's not a matter of us believing. No.
What do you make of the allegation, though, that these monies were given to the economic freedom fighters allegedly so that the EFF does not use its political muscle against the bank leadership? What do you make of that?
No, well, as you say, those are allegations. Once they now been proved in the court of law, then we accept it. So we take it as allegations as well. But we wait until, it will be proven that by the court of law that what was alleged is true.
Well, talk to us about the minority shareholders and their plight.
Explain to us in as crystal a way as you possibly can what a Section 105(1)A engagement entails.
Good evening to also to your viewers. Basically, it says, come to us, you've been accused, you are one of the individuals that you would have liked to prosecute. However, if you come to us and tell all and help us or assist us in implicating and making sure there's successful prosecution of other individuals, we are going to have a say in terms of the punishment that you are going to get. So we're not going to find you not guilty or say you are going to let you scot-free. However, the level of punishment and the weight that you're going to receive now is going to be much, much lesser than compared to what you're going to receive at a later stage had you not participated. But there is a condition which is attached. Firstly, tell all. Secondly, make sure that you're able to implicate those individuals as much as possible. And lastly, you still have the court that you still have to convince that what you are saying is indeed the truth, what you are saying is indeed something that took place, and it's going to assist the court in arriving at a conclusion of determining who are the individuals that should be prosecuted and the punishment that is going to be given to them.
Yeah. What happens if the evidence that you bring forward in testimony turns out to not be able to form a prosecutable case, or that some of it is just unprovable?
Well, you run the risk of your plea bargain being set aside. So whatever engagement or agreement that you came up to, you are then going to be told, well, you may have come to us earlier, but we're not going to consider and accept your plea bargain. So the plea then falls away, and we are going to prosecute you in a normal manner. So the same evidence that would have came against the other individuals is then going to come in against you, and you may be found guilty and given the maximum punishment that would have been given to a person that is punished or that is accused of doing what you've been doing. But there's a very strategic thing that must be done by the NPA before all of this takes place. You must make sure that the person is not let go. You must make sure that the person remains someone that can be prosecutable at a later stage. You must make sure that you put in loophole, very strong, tight positions within the plea bargain that are going to make it very impossible for a person to be scot-free. Because if there are loopholes that are there, the person may even go out based on a technicality. So it's important to think it through before you consider it.
Yeah. And is it mandatory, as per what is typically the case in court proceedings, that the settlement agreement become part of court documents and therefore become publicly available? Because at the moment, we're not quite sure what was on offer by the NPA to Tshifhiwa Matodzi that brought about this plea bargain agreement.
That is usually something which is going to be stated within court. So when they appear back in court, the court will be told, we have entered into a plea and settlement and as a sentencing agreement. This is how it's going to be. This is what the person has told us. Let us tell you as the presiding officer or as the judge that this is what the person has stated, and this is the type of sentence in which we are looking as part of punishment. Is it acceptable to the court? Because the decision must still be taken by the judge whether they accept it or not. This is to eliminate whether soft settlements which are going to take place between accused and the prosecution. So you need that independent third person who's going to come in and say, I'm not accepting this, or I'm accepting this because I can see that it's going to assist at a later stage. But usually you would only accept this type of evidence and only accept whatever sentence agreement which is going to come back after the evidence has been produced, after the evidence has been tested, to run away from the risk of accepting and letting someone go. And when you've done that, either they do not want to participate anymore, or even when they participate, they're not doing so comprehensively or bona fide. So they'll be stating things. However, it wouldn't be things that are really what ought to have been stated in the proceedings, or things which are going to successfully prosecute and make sure that the individuals that are in the accused box are convicted.
Yeah. In the calculation of a plea bargain offer, typically the state or the prosecutor would have to ask themselves, can this person help us be led to the mastermind behind the crime? But in this instance, the calculus is the other way around, because the mastermind is Tshifhiwa Matodzi, and he had admitted to such. He was the instigator, coordinator, as well as the convener of the crime and corruption that took place at the VBS Mutual Bank. He's not leading us to somebody more powerful, more significant, or certainly more corrupted than he is in that instance. To what extent is that in the interest of justice?
I think in this case, they look at it in terms of numbers to say how many other individuals or accused can you be able to gather, not necessarily maybe on the status of the individuals that are involved or to their level of being active. Now, it does have a certain advantage if you're going to have the mastermind and the master player the person who drew up all the plans, executed all the payments and the transactions, will be able to testify in court to say, I gave so a million rands, I gave another individual 300,000 rand, we met on this date, and this is what has taken place. But you need to be very meticulous as the NPA when you're prosecuting the other individuals in terms of saying, what other collaborative evidence can I find other than the one that has been produced by the individual that has drafted the affidavit? The more collaborative evidence I have, the much better, because that means I'll be able to get the type of prosecution and the type of sentence in which I'm requiring from these individuals. Which is why I think maybe in this case it was really a leak. That particular affidavit shouldn't have made it into the public. What they've done is that they've alerted many other individuals to say these are investigations that are taking place.
Yeah, can I pause you then? I mean, many of them were at pains to respond to that, like former Director General of National Treasury, Dondo Mokhojane. But it was a leak, and the NPA bemoans the fact that it was leaked. In fact, they are saying they're considering their legal options, such as potentially interdicting any further publishing and reportage by the media about the substance of that affidavit. It's a little too late on the fact. It's effectively a moot exercise. But what legal remedy does the NPA have in further reportage and broadcasting around this document and any other related matters in this case?
I think on this one, they would say we're now classifying it as certainly evidence that is still being investigated. So if you report on it, you will be jeopardizing the administrative justice and obstructing the administrative justice. So when it comes to common law principles, you can be prosecuted on that. Also, during the NPA Act, any disclosure of information, if you're not the individual that is supposed to disclose that particular information, you can be prosecuted for that. That is famous from the recent case against Asquith Billy Down and miscarriage more that has taken place. So the same provisions would then apply to an individual that has published that particular material information after being told that we're still investigating. You are jeopardizing the manner in which we're doing our investigation, and if you do so, then we're going to come back and punish you.
The Ramavhunga investigative team say they are in possession of banking records collected by a forensic investigator, which corroborates some of the disgraced former chairperson Tshifhiwa Matodzi's affidavit. He claimed that some 1 million rand in bribes was paid to the former National Treasury Director General, Dondo Mokhojane, to intervene in the barring of municipalities from making deposits into the VBS Bank. Mokhojane denies this. Let's speak now to Ramavhunga journalist Dewald van Rensburg. Good evening to you, Dewald, and thank you very much for your time. So let's begin with that claim that is made in the affidavit by Tshifhiwa Matodzi that Dondo Mokhojane, this is the former Treasury Director General, agreed to a bribe of 1 million rand. This is something he contests. Are you able to tell us whether you were able to uncover something new?
Okay, so first thing first, I was listening in on your preamble to the show saying Mokhojane denies everything. That's not true. He doesn't deny everything in Matodzi's affidavit, and he kind of glosses over the parts that are interesting. He does not deny the meetings Matodzi says they had. And this is one thing we have been, I think, reasonably been able to confirm, that they met at a cigar lounge. Because on the date Matodzi describes this meeting, and we have found a bill paid by Matodzi at that cigar lounge at about the right time for that. And at that meeting, allegedly, the arrangement was struck for 1 million rand bribe in a very clandestine kind of, smoke and mirrors kind of way. It was bank, details written on a piece of paper, passed around the room. Mokhojane silently nodding and saying, yes, 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 pay to here. So that's the allegation that was made. What we have is bank statements which show that 1 million rand was in fact paid to the bank account Matodzi mentions there. So, and that was made, actually 2 payments were made, one very shortly after those meetings, which he alleges that Mokhojane doesn't deny. 100,000 rand was paid. The 1 million rand payment came in early 2018 to this non-profit company that's been identified. And that came basically in the week when VBS was begging the Reserve Bank and Treasury to just give it a breather, give it a lifeline, don't close them down, essentially.
Yeah.
So we know the meetings happened. We do know money was paid to this non-profit company, and that is what we can prove. The question, of course, is, did the non-profit give the money to Bajane? That we cannot say, although the non-profit itself is a little suspicious. It's 3 directors. 2 of them are the daughters of a former or late deputy minister, Makize, in the presidency. And there was a 3rd director who claims at least not to even know she is a director. I mean, that's tantamount to alleging fraud on behalf of the creators of this non-profit company.
Yeah.
So altogether, it doesn't look great. You know, there's always a benefit of the doubt. It turns out that Bajane, while kind of arguing VBS's case, according to
you heard the minister in the presidency there, but are we really at that stage where the contents of the said now leaked affidavit, as we understand, is at the stage not tested to be facts?
Yeah, I think VBS is one of the examples of how the political and economic elite have used their social and political capital in pursuit of personal accumulation. Actually, it's more than just personal accumulation. It's accumulation by a disposition, because it's accumulation by taking away from the poorest of the poor. We're talking about people who are involved in stock fails. And the worst part of it, in my opinion, is the fact that you have political parties who are to the left of the political spectrum, who are supposed to be defending the working class, who are also accused of this looting. So I don't know when the minister says that action will be taken. In what context is she saying that? Because we need to clear the air that the ANC is no longer the ruling party now. You know, you have a coalition arrangement. So I presume that she was speaking on behalf of government now, not on behalf of the ANC. So it will be quite interesting how the ANC as a political party will respond to this, given the fact that the municipalities who deposited money, wrongfully so, to VBS were municipalities that were led by the ANC. And you have other people who are in the executive of the provincial government who are also implicated on this, and nothing was done in terms of disciplining them. Yes, some of them were let go of their positions, but then they were brought back, which signifies that the ANC doesn't take the fight against corruption seriously.
You know, Prof, what is interesting in your point of course, how those arrests are actually going to be made. What do you make of the fact that there was actually instant rebuttal of these allegations by some of the implicated? We saw there with state capture. I know you just made mention to it, with some of the so-called whistleblowers completely or even partially abandoning their so-called concrete evidence, and we are still dealing with those direct effects where the NPA has had a very difficult time in actually prosecuting those that were implicated purely by word of mouth.
Yeah, the story has been running for a longer period, you know, covering the period of, I think, 2016 until to date. So it's quite sad that only one person has pleaded guilty, which is Tshifhiwa Matodzi, and laid bare the facts and dropped some names of, you know, very well-known politicians. But I think at the moment, maybe I must put a disclaimer and say that, you know, we should not cast aspersions on people's names if they have not been found guilty by the court of law. But that doesn't take away the seriousness of these allegations. They are quite serious. People lost their money, talking about the poorest of the poor, and those people who have broken the law, they need to be brought to book. I mean, this is one of the biggest scandals that we've ever had, I think, since 1994.
And economic freedom fighters President Julius Malema and his deputy Floyd Shivambu have been fingered in the VBS scandal. In that leaked affidavit by Matodzi, the EFF former chairperson, Advocate Dalimpofu, and Public Interest South Africa founder, Tebogo Khas, joining me in studio for this discussion. Gentlemen, good evening to you, and thank you very much for your time. I'll start with you, Mr. Mpofu. The VBS saga resurfaces again, and allegations are made against the leadership of the EFF. And in the main, it is the president of your party and the deputy. How does the EFF respond?
Well, Claude, you know, in a way, we're just tired of having to say the same thing about this. Every time somebody speaks, it's blown up as if something new has come up. Now, the latest, of course, is this Matodzi affidavit. Now, the most important thing about that is that actually nothing new comes out of that affidavit, nothing at all. If anything, that affidavit contains information which absolves the persons that you have liberally said that they've been fingered. Because Matodzi says, remember in the previous, all the previous reports, Mutao and the Daily Maverick and all that, it was said that these were monies that were paid to the persons that you've mentioned. Matodzi now says, no, this was a donation to the EFF, not to the persons that you are mentioning. And he says that he had of course he does say that he had a meeting with them, but he specifically says that it was a donation to the EFF. So there are three things that need to be separated. One is, let's call it the Zuma loan, because he says that what sparked this whole thing was because the EFF was criticizing the Zuma loan publicly, and it was damaging to the organization. So he felt that he needed to meet. Now, that's very normal. I can tell you, I've been in the corporate world. I've been a so-called corporate affairs and stakeholder management. I've even been a CEO. That's what happens. If your company, if someone is talking about it, you either go yourself, if you're a CEO, or send your corporate affairs people to explain, as he says in the affidavit. So he says he went to explain the Zuma loan, and that's why he had the meeting. Now, it turns out that he says at that meeting, he also said, look, our constituencies are the same, and offered, this is very important, offered a donation himself. Now, you might want to say, well, why would he offer a donation? The answer is that companies offer donations. We've just had now an election where tens and tens of millions were given to political parties. And then, of course, he then says that this donation, which he offered, was then paid over, or there was this arrangement that there must be a bank account and so on. Now, if you compare that to, for example, what he says happened with the ANC and the SACP. Now, he says those parties solicited or asked for donations, unlike the case of the EFF, where he says he offered it himself because of the coincidence of constituencies. I can't remember the exact wording in the affidavit. So the point I'm making, Paul, is simply this. This Matodzi affidavit, if anything, sheds better light as to who the beneficiaries are and who they were not.
Yeah.
Because we were told earlier, no, this one bought Nando's and all that with VBS money and so on. Now, the man makes it clear that there were these donations. And to the extent that he says that they used vehicles and all that, that's what happens. I mean, if I do a deal with you, I can use any vehicle. That's how the money, the CR17 money was channeled.
All right. So before I move to Mr. Tebogo Kaz,
yeah,
just for the record,
right,
there is no denial this time that the EFF party did receive funds from VBS. No,
there's never been a denial of that. That's why I'm saying there's nothing new. There's always been there are two. Okay, I was saying there are three things. The third thing is the loan, and that's what has always been in the public domain. Now, so you must separate what he calls the donation, which is what happens to political parties. There's no political party that doesn't receive donations. You see, let me assist you, Paul. What is being said here is that there's corruption, okay? So I say, where's the corruption? Where's the fraud? and where's the money laundering or any crime? Okay. And let me assist you. If, let's take the worst case scenario. Let's say the guy says, okay, I'll give you a donation. He doesn't say that, but I'm just making it up. Let's say he says, I'll give you a donation if you stop criticizing me. Let's assume he said that. He didn't even say that. Even if he said that, so what? Because it's not a crime to criticize someone on a public platform or not to criticize them for that matter. So it's not as an exchange for any corruption. What was the EFF going to get in return for not criticizing him, which happens, as I say, every time companies engage. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was accused of having met with Maria Ramos because we had threatened to march to APSA. And her people came, it was not her, by the way, but her people did come to my office to say, look, we want to explain the reason why you want to march and so on. And I listened to them, and that was it. So I will now going to arrest Maria Ramos because he sent people from a bank because the EFF was saying things which they thought they needed to explain, which is exactly what happened here.
Mr. Kass, for public interest South Africa, the revelations in the Matodzi affidavit, what do you make of those revelations, and where should the country's thinking be about those who are mentioned in those papers?
Yeah, thanks for the question. You know, Mr. Mpofu might very well say there's no difference between those who approach and request donations and those who just sit passively and receive donations. But there's no moral or legal distinction between either of the two, because the fact of the matter is that money that was not or not to have reached the coffers of the EFF or its leaders did filter through, and money that ought not to have filtered through to them. Under circumstances where, as he has explained, and as it is testified, adduced in that affidavit, that actually it was a response to the negative vibes that they were getting. So that, so you could very well see that there is a cause and effect. Money would not have left VBS or Vele or any of the entities if it was not the fact that the EFF initially criticized and then the Zuma loan, and then later on after the meeting, they changed their tune after money had exchanged hands. So there's money that was not belong to the EFF or not to have been in the EFF coffers in the first place did leave VBS. Poor old ladies' money left their bank to an entity that ostensibly fights for them. So we shouldn't really beat about the bush. Whether you have asked a bribe or what, but if you received a bribe, it's a crime. Yeah. Whether you receive money that was not belonging to you or not, it's morally repugnant and it's legally questionable. There are answers that ought to be provided by those who receive the money.
All right. Let's deal with what Mr. Kass has just said, Mr. Mpofu, that there has to be questions about monies that were not received legally. If the EFF did indeed receive donations from VBS, why did that money have to come through Scamega? This is a company that is owned by Brian Shibambu. This is a brother to the EFF deputy president. Right. Because if you're not denying today that the EFF did receive donations, then we know that those monies came via Scamega.
No. Well, let me first correct Tebogo. He says, which is correct, if you receive a bribe, whether you've asked for it or did not ask for it, doesn't matter. But that's the whole point. What does it mean, a bribe? A bribe for what? That's the point I'm making. If a company gives another company donations, we have a letter from Helen Zille saying to the Guptas, thank you for your generous donations. That it doesn't mean that we don't know the conditions under which those donations were given. Yeah. So a donation does not equate a bribe. That's what I need to explain to him. Yeah. So that's the first point. Then come to your question. I didn't say anything about how the money left this or whatever, or who received it or didn't. I'm saying to you that even on the Matodzi version, I don't think the Matodzi version should be taken seriously. We shouldn't be sitting here, at least the one thing you said correctly in in your introduction was that we're talking about a convicted fraudster. Now, that alone, you know, in law, there's something called a cautionary rule. When you are listening to evidence, even in a court situation, evidence of an accomplice, let alone a convicted fraudster and criminal, just an accomplice, if we do something, Tebogo and I, and then I testify, but we did it together, the courts apply what is called a cautionary rule, because that evidence is prima facie unreliable. Okay, so that's where the thing comes from. Yeah. So now I'm saying, put aside the cautionary rule. Even if you take it as at face value, it is exculpatory, at least as far as the specific leaders are concerned. Now, whether the money, as I've said, if you use a vehicle, the 1 billion rand that was paid to Ramaphosa was paid through SPVs. That's how the donor wants to do it. That's how the donor wants to do it, or that's the arrangement that is made. It doesn't really matter. The point of the matter is that a donation to a political parties survive through donations. Before the Political Party Funding Act, so this happened in 2017, according to Matodzi, and that act came in place in 2018. So one thing I can assure you is that when we have a rally, when we have this and the other, we go and ask for donations from people. It's not a crime.
It may not be a crime. You want to come in, Mr.
Yeah, assuming it was a donation, as you rightly, put that question earlier, why did he have to go through many other hops before it go to the EFF? Because he says the donation to the EFF. And why would there have been a need to backdate contracts to make it look regular contract? In circumstances where it was just a donation. So if Helen Zille wrote a letter saying, thank you, you gave money to the DA, so be it. Right. The money didn't leave a coffer of Vele to go to the DA or of the Gupta to go to another entity, another person. I didn't know that. And then before it goes to Zille. Because that's how it was reported. It was reported, and as he had confirmed in the letter, that the monies left, they received a donation from the Guptas.
Right. So, Mr. Mpofu.
Yes.
Simple question. Now that the EFF is open about receiving donations from VBS, how much money in total did the EFF receive? Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about, the EFF being, now that it's open. You must listen to everything our leaders have said from the day. One of the things, for example, I think there was, I don't know if you guys were participating, there was a media conference that was held by the president of the EFF. It was kind of a one-on-one. And he said, look, I don't know why these people are saying these things about, I've never met those people of VBS. The only person I ever met was a guy called Matodzi. So that's what I'm saying. So there's no revelation in this. So unless if you said, look, you said you only met Matodzi, now it turns out you've met this one and that one and that one. So that's already been done. The other thing is the confusion between two things. Between the donation and the loan, okay, which is what Tebogo, the mistake he's making. The issue of the loan to Skameka is separate. Even according to Matodzi, that happened on a much later separate occasion about renovations and what have you. So that's the point I'm making. And we don't know as to what what prompted that as opposed to the donation. Because all I'm saying is that I'm dealing with these things systematically. I'm saying the donation is, I can assure you, if you meet a political party that says it has never received a donation, you must know that you're talking to a liar.
Which is precisely why I'm asking about the amounts, at least that were received by the EFF in totality. It has to matter, Mr. Mpofu, because at some point, we must know as a country how much money was received, because donors are not afraid of revealing that information through the new laws that have now been promulgated. So why is it a problem for the EFF to admit to this?
No, because we don't have a culture of saying, Oli gave us this amount, this one gave us this amount. Why is that? We've said this in the open. Because some people will get, who are an opposition party, people might get victimized. If Vodacom gives us 30 rand or whatever it is, we don't go around and say, no, they gave us this amount for various reasons. Every political party does that, I can tell you. That is why there was something called the Political Party Funding Act, so that at least up to the tune, if the donation is beyond 100,000, then now you're forced by law to reveal it. So, but please just listen to this. You can ask the smallest political party in the good party that got 0.18 of the vote in the ministry, that and ask whether all the posters that they put, what happened? Did it come from Ms. Patricia de Lille's salary? No, they get donations. That's what, and they don't, as I say, except for the legal obligation, have to disclose those. That's why even the law protects certain amounts of donations. Yeah.
To create jobs, to promote inclusive economic growth, and working together, that will be the focus. And we're not going to be distracted by those who seek to break rather than those who want to work together in the best interest of all of our people to build going forward. Now, I heard a lot today, a lot of political invective being thrown around, a lot of epithets being thrown around. Who's right-wing and who's left-wing, who's right and who's wrong. But let me just say this. I was accused of being a right-winger. Let me just make this point. While some amongst us were busy looting VBS Bank, and I wonder how many emerging farmers lost their funds along with our gogos and the stokvels and the small agriculture there when that bank was looted. While some were looting VBS Bank, I was busy using our resources in court to fight for Mr. David Rakhatse to get the land that he was due and to bring justice to that particular issue. While others were busy involved in state capture and putting people into key positions.
Honourable Minister, there is a point of order. Honourable Member, you must raise your point. Honourable Tlangwini, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, House Chair. House Chair, I just want to check if Mr. Steenhuisen are willing to take a question on the stain of looting that the DA was involved in.
Before you ask the question, you've asked if he's prepared to take a question. And Honourable Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
No, I'm not. I want to finish my point. Thanks. So while others were busy putting key people into places so that they could capture the state to benefit themselves, we were busy out there trying to bring justice to South Africa, to fight the very elements that people were wanting to reintroduce. There's a great saying in agriculture: as you sow, so shall ye reap. What the EFF sowed going into this election has ended up with the rotten harvest that they got in this election, where they lost votes and went backwards, and other parties have been returned with greater numbers. The GNU is setting out determinedly to change life for the better for all of our citizens. And so, wherever you may be around the country, whether it is in a rural area or whether it's an urban area, whether you're a business person or whether you're unemployed, I'm here to tell you today that help is on the way. The Government of National Unity is working together to make life better for all South Africans.
Thank you. I think what we need to emphasize is that there's a narrative that is peddled out that any party that is not part of the GNU does not want progress in our country. It is a country that, it is a party that is full of anarchists and stuff like that. What we need to emphasize, number one, also there's this issue whereby the parties that are seated here are pro-amendment of the Constitution in some regards. For example, the question of land expropriation without compensation. And that has been used as a narrative to demonize such actions as anti-constitution. Whereas there are also parties in that GNU that also want amendments to the Constitution. For example, the IFP has long called for the amendment of the Constitution to deal with the death penalty case. But that narrative is not used by them. So we just wanted to clarify that amendments to the Constitution is constitutional itself because the Constitution provides for such. The second thing that we we want to clarify as well. It is a question of having an opposition in Parliament, because the manner in which our democracy is founded, it is actually encouraging effective opposition or opposition in Parliament. Now, you find that any party that is not part of the GNU, in fact, the narrative that is there, it is as if all parties must be part of the GNU, and no questions are asked what then happens to the principle of having an opposition in Parliament to guard against any abuse of power by the executive, which is evident now when you see how the DA is changing its tune, because previously the DA has been calling out the ANC for abusing their power when it comes to having the numbers to vote for issues. It is the very same DA now that is saying, in other words, it is going to protect Mr. Ramaphosa, even though there is wrongdoing by the side or by the view of the former Chief Justice on the issue of Phala Phala. So those are the things that the media needs to report on, that a progressive caucus is more than necessary for that principle of having opposition in our democracy. Number two, we aren't anti-constitutionalism, but what we want, it is what is provided for by the Constitution, which includes amendments. Thank you.
NCC.
No question was posed at me, Chief, but I will answer.
Well,
I will answer because I'm offended. I'm not Julius Malema's attorney. But the VBS issue comes up at every press conference. I noticed the SAPC put their hand down because they were covered by the question from the gentleman in green. You know, no one ever asks the DA how much did he benefit from Steiners. Here in the city of Cape Town, 8 people are before the court for 243 million rand fraud in the city of Cape Town. The city manager has hidden the reports. The speaker is part of the cover-up. The mayor has lied in council. But the DA never gets questioned by the media. It's as if people of color or people who demand equality are being persecuted by the very same media that is supposed to be everybody's watchdog. You people really should go and read your oath. Really should ask, what am I doing here? Am I here in my capacity as a free-thinking journalist? Or am I here to perpetuate the wrongs that are going on out there? Has this man taken anything from VBS? I don't know. Has the DA taken anything from Steenkopf? We all know they did. But you don't push that narrative as hard. And as a man of color, who when he parks in a taxi, it's in the newspaper, it's offensive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I also want to defend CIC. There is a reason why we call this the press conference. It was to launch the Progressive Caucus. We did not call it for any other purpose. And I think the media must stop abusing us. If we create a platform for a particular purpose, we are here for that. If you want to interview Comrade Malema on anything, he will decide when and whether or not to accept that. But don't abuse the fact that we have called you for something else, and then you take that opportunity, you turn it around. I'm also offended. I regard that as an abuse. We didn't call you for that. So I would like to protect him. I have every right to protect any comrade who's being abused and is part of the Progressive Caucus. So please, such questions are offensive. I was asked a question, I just want to take the floor and finish. I was asked a question by a journalist, a lady from Pietermaritzburg, who said, yes, about rural development, the role of the kings. Yes, we take land very, very seriously. Those of us who have small pieces of land, like myself, you should come and see what we are doing. We take farming and imparting of skills very, very, very seriously. If one can take you back to long before 1652, how did the African people live? We practiced subsistence farming, and the role that was played by the kings was significant in that regard. There is not a single African who cannot farm. There is not a single African who cannot hunt. There is not a single African who cannot feed himself. I always say, for example, when people are talking with reference to Ingonyama Trust land in KZN, saying that it's fertile land. You have heard this old lady saying that it's fertile land and it's not being used. I challenge people who say that. Go there and see. People will live in those areas, are not dependent on 350 rand per month, right? They can feed themselves through subsistence farming. So the answer is simply this. We will train our people, we will capacitate our people, but I am convinced almost every African, farming is in our blood. That's what we did, right, long before we were colonized. It's something that we enjoy. It is something that is close to our heart. Remember, an African is brought to this land, right? We live on this land, and even when we die, we are buried. That's why we are never cremated. So that there is connection between the land. When you are born, when you are surviving, you are still living, and when you are dead, you go back to the soil, you are planted. That's African life. So I'm not worried about kings. They are here in our midst. We know we are farmers with all of them. Was there any other question? Finally, on section 25, I just want to echo what my brother from ATM, Comrade Zungisa, said. Whenever you raise issues of land, an impression is created that we're a group of thugs. We're not thugs. We are law-abiding citizens. We are politicians here. We have every right to criticize the Constitution, which is basically not speaking to the people. Remember, we're representing 70% of the people that we're representing. We may have just 102 seats, but we know our mandate. Our people feel that the Constitution is not addressing their needs. It is not addressing their expectations, right? So we have every right to call for that Constitution to be amended. There is nothing unconstitutional about that. In fact, there are some leaders, including the leader of the Freedom Front and including the leader of the Progressive, the PA, Abahambe, what's Patriotic Alliance, Abahambe. I mean, those parties are calling for the return of the death sentence. The death sentence is unconstitutional. That is what the court decided in this country. Now, those are the leaders, you should be asking them. Here is the Constitution. How can you be calling for the death sentence to be imposed without calling for the Constitution to be amended? Right? So we can assure you everything we do will be within the law. We are aware of the law. We are fully aware of it, but we will continue to canvass that the law must be changed to the extent that it does not meet the needs and address the aspirations of our people. And that is democracy. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DP. Let me deal with the issue of the Phala Phala issue. The conclusion then was that there was an abuse of the majoritarian approach of the ANC. Instead of looking into issues, they just used the majority to dismiss the issues. And now today, the ANC does not have majority. What will be an excuse from the DA to say we did not vote for Phala Phala because the ANC abused its majority? The ANC does not have majority. What made us get defeated last time was not substance, was numbers. Exactly. Numbers have tilted now in favor of all those who were voting for the impeachment process of the president. So it can no longer be an excuse that there is an abuse of Phala Phala majority. The statute here, DP, if I'm not wrong, we actually put a motion here in Parliament that statue in front of Parliament must be removed. And the ANC voting with the DA and them, they voted against removing that statue. Can I get some? No, the one that is in front of Mandela. The horse one is Louis Potter, Louis Potter. we're saying, how do you put Louis Botha statue in front of Mandela statue? And these guys refuse. If you remember, and if you are around, we tried to remove that thing at night. It's too heavy. It's very difficult. So the program hasn't stopped. We are still trying to find ways of dealing with that arrangement. The ANC in Tshwane actually went to put a fence on Kruger statue, a fence and protect the ANC council in Tshwane, protected Kruger statue, and we had a plan. The problem is that after we put a chain, and then the truck was on the other side to pull, Metro Police came, so we disappeared. After we disappeared, they realized, no, there is a problem here. They went to put a fence, making it very difficult for anyone who wants to remove that statue, legally or illegal. That's how much they are in love with the colonizers. The last point, Judge, I'm not scared of this. I'm the one who spoke about VBS. I'm not scared about this VBS story. There's no Matodzi affidavit. That is a sponsored propaganda that is aimed at intimidating and defocusing the EFF. I will never be defocused by VBS. I will never be intimidated by VBS. I can tell you seated here, and I'm repeating myself, and I'm so disappointed that Sam Kelwesia doesn't defend me. I sat down with him. I gave him, it was a panel of them. I said, ask me any question you want to ask me. They asked me the same things that you are trying to create an impression that they are new. Those questions were raised at that time, and facts were never found. No leader of the EFF received a VBS money. No EFF received a VBS money. Matodzi never alleges in his affidavit that the money was given to the EFF or the leadership of the EFF. In Matodzi's affidavit, which is unbelievable and we dispute, is that the money was given to Sgamega. As Sgamega money, which we never disputed, that Sgamega confirmed it received the money, to an extent that Sgamega was called by the curators of VBS, and Sgamega reached an agreement with the curators of VBS to pay back the loan they took from VBS. That loan has since been paid. So there is no one, even in Sgamega, who has eaten the money of Gogos. They've paid back that money back to the VBS. Try something else. You want to talk about the cut? In the meeting where Samkel and them were interrogating me and thinking they've got facts like you are doing, unless you just arrived from Ukraine, you will not know what are the issues that transpired before. They even made me to take out my wallet in search of the cut you are talking about. They couldn't find it on me. What makes you want to raise the same issue that you probed me, not through questions, literal search, and the cut you are talking about, you could not find in my position? Try something else. VBS will not work. We're not here for the first time. We've been tested before with unfounded allegations which their aim was to achieve a political end. The abuse of state and the state resources has never intimidated us. There is no one who can raise VBS and silence me. The only thing that is going to silence me from raising matters in this country is death. Outside death, nothing will stop me, nothing will intimidate me. I'm not scared of Ramaphosa and all of his cahoots. Let them bring it on. We are ready to fight them. And if they want to arrest, we told them then, this thing you are raising in the Matodzi evidence was even there before people got arrested for VBS. Why didn't they arrest us then? You cannot put any man of the VBS in our pockets or in the pockets of the VBS. That's what Advocate Dalimpofu was saying. He never said the EFF received money. He was saying, let's assume that affidavit of Matodzi is true. Even with the version of Matodzi, there's nowhere where he says he gave the EFF money, but there's nowhere where Matodzi says EFF solicited a bribe or asked for a donation. He says he offered, if we're to believe that particular affidavit. And he doesn't say he has donated money to the EFF account or to the leadership of the EFF. He now speaks about taking the money into Sgamega, which he's got contract with, and it is on the basis of that contract that the curators accepted the settlement of Sgamega. So the matter is closed. But because you have nothing against the EFF and you want to intimidate it going into this 7th Parliament, you go to the dustbin, thrash literal journalism. You start searching for things that are non-existent in an attempt to silence us. Our keeping quiet on this matter is not because we don't have answers, but we are just tired of answering nonsense. Every time we give you facts, you work against the facts because you want to achieve a particular end. The leader of NCC is right. Steinhoff is there. With so many billions disappeared, DA never get questioned. Musimaimani received a car from Steinhoff. That matter is still not spoken about. Musimaimani received a house from Steinhoff. That matter is not spoken about. The white corruption in this country is not spoken about. You are trying to use us in relation to VBS to give corruption a black face, which we refuse. You are protecting white corruption in this country at the expense of the progressive people of South Africa to silence them. Even in the Matodzi issue, there is Communist Party that is alleged to have requested, EFF they say in their own paper, never requested. The Communist Party requested the money. The ANC requested the money and gave, Zwelim Kise gave an account of a different company. There they implicate them directly and say they requested and even told us where to pay. The EFF did not request. If anything, we offered to donate to the EFF. But those that are recipient of such donation, which we dispute, are now being attacked as if they are the one who went to solicit a bribe. The ANC in Limpopo, the biggest beneficiary of VBS because they send their municipalities to go and put money in VBS in exchange for gratuity. So that is not spoken about. Again, Polokwane municipality put money in VBS. None of you has asked the question, who was the mayor when Polokwane was putting money in VBS? The mayor was Minister of Justice at that time. Thank you.
Let me know in the comments what you think about this VBS scandal. Do you agree or disagree with any of the information in this video? Who will come out on top? If you found the video informative, remember the beef special, BYF, beef special. Before you forget, like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Fraud News channel. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. God bless you.